Still right on track. My name is Daniel Valles, and welcome to our channel. I wasn't able to get a picture tonight because it was still too hazy. We've been having a bunch of storms lately, but this was last night's picture, and you can see that it's still near the hind feet, and we are interpreting it the exact same way that the Revelation 12 sign is interpreted, as the concept of what the stars represent, and the constellation represents the lion. And because it is the next sign that happens in a year or so, it is very relevant to interpreting this celestial sign too, in this constellation as well. And we've talked before about how the concept of Leo, the lion, is a lot broader than mere sticks and lines that connect dots in the sky. And this was well known to the ancient world. They did not view it as stick figures. They viewed it as objects, concepts. And when you look at depictions of Leo in a lot of historical documents, going back even to the time of Christ, this is how they depicted it. And this is the particular artwork that we use on our Sign of Shiloh sheet, because it's very similar to a lot of the other ones. You can look at multiple charts, and you could see the hind leg. They're always portraying Leo the same way. But you could see the distinct hind leg and the tail. But then the hind leg does go down further with the smaller magnitude stars. It does go farther down than what normally jumps out to you in the night sky. But where you see Jupiter right now is right in the hind leg. But you can see conceptually the hind leg and between the legs is much more than just mere stick figures. And so Jupiter is still well within between the feet. The conditions laid out in the prophecy and in the verse that it will not depart Judah and it will not depart from between the feet. And we also see the picture mentioned specifically tied to the one who sprang out of Judah, the picture and association with the heel. So it's very interesting that we see Jupiter right now not only between the legs and in the hind leg area, the thighs of the lion, but we also find it in the area of the heels, the Achilles heel of the lion. And this is the well understood depiction of Leo with its hind leg going all the way down and extending very close to Virgo, but it will vary from artwork to artwork, and we do have to make sure we don't lock ourselves into one particular depiction of the artwork. But just keep in mind that the leg does go all the way down quite a ways, and the body of the lion is much larger conceptually than mere stick figures. And usually you will find in the depictions that the hind quarters of the lion are more on the other side of the stars, where Jupiter is right now, than on the forward side. So conceptually it is still between the feet right now. And it is also at the Achilles heel region of the lion's legs. And when we look at ancient artwork, hieroglyphics going back to Egypt, even around 30 BC before Christ, they depicted Leo in this exact same position with the hind legs stretched out like that. And you could see even there in the Dendera temple where they had the hieroglyphics depicting it right on top of the snake, walking on the snake. And that was their depiction they had in other places too, right on top of the serpent. We talked about yesterday how Hydra is right underneath Leo and Virgo. It is the serpent. And we talked about how that applies to the Genesis prophecy. The prophecy that is introduced in the first few pages of the Bible goes all the way through the Bible to the book of Revelation in different stages. And it's the largest constellation in the sky, so it's hard to miss. But it is directly under Leo, and just visually, Leo walks on it. We looked at Job 26, by his spirit he hath garnished the heavens, his hand hath formed a crooked serpent. These stories and pictures are in Scripture, and they're referenced and related to remind us of the prophecies. And this depiction of Leo, we always got to keep it in mind. Don't lock yourselves into stick figures. The concept of the lion. And this is what we have in our Sign of Shiloh sheet to remind you, to blend in your mind the star locations that we're tracking right now, but then also mentally overlay it with a common depiction of Leo's hindquarters, and how the paw does go down quite a ways, and his hindquarters, his thighs, and the Achilles heel region where Jupiter is right now, it's quite large and almost goes right up to the border of Leo and Virgo, at the part where the ecliptic, where Jupiter's path is. But we don't want to lock ourselves necessarily into a set defined piece of artwork, so I did kind of blur and try to make it kind of fuzzy so we could just keep the concept in our mind. It's still well within between the feet. It is still within Judah, and it's still at the heels region. And it's going to be that way for a number of days, all the way up through August 8th and 9th. So don't let anyone tell you that this hasn't come to pass. We're still right in prime territory right now, right in the middle of the picture that is explained in the Genesis prophecy, and you can go outside and view it for yourself. It's still right there in the night sky. Looking at it from the historical perspective, looking at the historical stars associated with Leo too as well, it all fits. It still all goes together. Our understanding, we've been watching and looking for it over the past few weeks. We've been growing in our knowledge about the hind leg and the makeup of the concept of Leo. And it's amazing to learn more about it and see that it is still ongoing and we are in prime territory. But then we are also learning new things about the prophecy too as well, with Hydra and the serpent underneath. We're learning a lot more as we dig into and we continue watching. The lion is on top of the serpent, treading on the serpent right now. So if you haven't yet, definitely download the Sign of Shiloh sheet where we have this as a reminder that it's still going to be viable for a number of days still yet. But again, as it goes away further and further from the stars, it does get more and more vague. We are in prime time territory right now. And continue to pray for our Shiloh book. We are trying to compile a lot of this information together into one booklet and to give text descriptions with it as well so people can easily be caught up to speed who are not familiar with this or have not been watching the videos. So definitely continue to keep this project in prayer. It's taking a lot of work and we're pulling a lot together from different areas. And we have several people helping on it. And this is just a sneak preview of what we have pulled together so far. It is so amazing. I can't wait to show it to you. There is so much information coming together right now. We've covered so much over the past few videos and days and weeks. And when you look at it in book form and realize the powerful picture that God is showing us, a prophecy from the first few pages of the Bible that go all the way through the book of Revelation. We are witnessing it right now, the picture and pattern that's rehearsed for us. So continue to keep this project in prayer. I need strength. This takes a lot of energy, a lot of mental focus. I need wisdom and strength definitely, and grace for those who are helping as well. So we definitely appreciate your prayers. This is where Jupiter was today. Again, I wasn't able to get a picture today to really show it to you. I was hoping to get a picture here sometime soon so I could show you Hydra in there too as well. But Jupiter is getting lower and lower in the horizon overall, or Leo is, every single day. So an hour after sunset is the best time to see it, start seeing it. But keep in mind, it's not going to be above the horizon for too long. Might have an hour or two. And if we add in the lines just to show you where the other stars commonly associated with the hind leg, all the way down to the paw, from all those other historical pictures we showed you already, that is the entire hind leg right there. And then if you, in your mind's eye, you just overlay a lion on it. Here we overlay just some of the artwork, some of the common artwork. You could see Jupiter as well within the leg. It's well between the feet, conceptually. And that's how the Revelation 12 sign is viewed and interpreted. And so that's how we're going to interpret the Leo passage, because we have that biblical precedent. And when you go outside and look in the night sky, and just from the photos I had showed you before, a simple zoom camera will show you the horizontal stars of the hind leg there too as well. So you can get a real good idea of where it is in the hind leg. And it's still very close. It's right in the middle of between the legs. The hind haunches of the lion. Now, of course, the further away it gets more questionable. We are definitely in prime time territory right now. But some people are asking about the 30th. And it's still going to be well within the borders at that time. But some people are asking about the 30th of July, particularly because other planets are starting to come into the scene. And they were wondering if it has prophetic significance with the celestial sign or not, too. We had talked before about how Venus and Mercury don't seem to be pictured in this prophecy at all, so we don't have a peg to hang our hat on, so to speak, to look at and consider them with this prophecy. And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at the prophecy. But then secondly, we have to consider this is a sign in the heavens. And it's a sign that anybody can see. Like the Psalm 19 passage talks about, it doesn't matter where you are. The heavens declare the glory of God. It doesn't matter what your language is. Their message goes throughout the entire world. The signs and pictures that the Bible records and are in the lights in the firmament, they are meant to be seen. And so we always have to keep that in mind. All signs, for us to really consider them, must be checked to make sure they are visible first. If a celestial arrangement in the heavens is not visible or is very hard to see, it's really hard to make a case that it's meant to be a message to the whole world. And that's the approach I always take. Keep it simple. These are meant to be messages to the whole world that everybody can see. And particularly with this sign of Shiloh, we've seen it for a year now, and it's very easy to see. I've had a number of people talking to me about it, or even just in the comments mentioning that, oh yeah, Jupiter caught their eye in the night sky because it stood out. It's a sign that catches your attention if you're outside much at that time of the day. And so whenever we consider other celestial arrangements that we may know about, we always have to ask, is this going to be something readily seen by the world, a message that can be portrayed to the whole world? And if it's not readily visible or not visible at all, I'm not going to mention it because I can't hang my hat on it. There's really no need to mention it if there's no message to it. And if it's not visible, it's not a message. And so when we examine Venus, for example, on the 30th, Venus and Mercury are both going to be technically visible above the horizon right in Leo. Particularly Mercury is supposedly going to be right next to Regulus there. You can see that just above the horizon. But you have to keep in mind these celestial programs such as Stellarium and other ones, they will show you the sky with crystal clear sky. They are not giving you a true representation. So we always have to keep in mind real world conditions and look at astronomy websites and what they're saying the conditions around the horizon are and the position of the sun and its glare, because that will give you a different picture than what astronomy programs will tell you. For example, this is the 30th, and you can see Mercury right there. And you can see Jupiter still well within the legs and between the legs too as well with the concept. But would Mercury have any significance? No, because it's not really visible. And we talked about this several days ago that even back on the 16th, they were heavily warning that Mercury and Venus, you're not going to be able to see them hardly at all unless you have absolutely crystal clear sky with an unobstructed western horizon. And this was back on the 16th, just a few days ago. It hasn't really changed too much. It is still very close to the horizon and very much within the sun's glare. And the article even showed real-world pictures of how hard it is to find even under good conditions. It's not a visible sign right now. And so you can even go on these sites and learn about the Mercury-Regulus conjunction on July 30th. And they say, however, their rather fleeting rendezvous takes place in the glare of evening twilight. In other words, it's going to happen really quick, very shortly, and it's going to be in the glare too as well, right at the horizon. This coy couple will slip beneath the horizon about an hour after sunset or before it gets good and dark. But if you're up for the challenge, bring along binoculars to see if you can catch your furtive meeting in the twilight glare. Find an unobstructed horizon in the direction of setting sun, and in addition, hope for a crystal clear sky. So is this a visible sign? Practically no. And the same for Venus, which is technically going to be there above the horizon. But again, like they're saying, you are really going to have to go out of your way and have the absolute best conditions and the best view to even have a hope of seeing it. So I would not peg my prophetic hopes on it or necessarily get all excited about it as that pointing to a day or something like that. It is interesting to note, but because it's not a visible sign, that does drastically drop its weight of how important it is. Now, of course, on August 4th, just 5 days later, will be the end of the month of Av that we're in right now. And that's 4 days before it reaches the astronomical border. And because of everything we have seen so far pointing us to this time and the picture with all the line references and the powerful story there connection, we have high probability to expect that the rapture and the gathering of Shiloh's people will happen within this context, within this month associated with the lion. So we do have that expectation just because of what we've seen and how the pictures have been built up. And by then, Mercury will still be getting more and more visible, and Venus will be coming more onto the scene too. And you can see the moon in this picture as well too. But again, the astronomical sites are saying quite clearly you're going to be having a hard time to see anything near the horizon, especially Mercury and Venus and even the moon on this particular day. So I would not get too excited or worked up about the additional planetary movements coming into technically the area because you can't see them. And if they're not a visible sign, then there's no visible message. So we just need to make that distinction in our mind. And so right now we find ourselves well between the feet, right at the heel of the lion, the Achilles heel region. We find ourselves that we still have a number of days. Prime time, but where we are right now, we're definitely close and in the thicker part of the leg. We're in prime time territory right now, so we must be ready every day. It is going to take midnight oil. because we don't know how much longer we're going to have to wait. Our bridegroom is tarrying, and we wish he would hurry up, but as long as we're here, we got a job to do, either to help someone else or work on something in our own life. Christ has told us he's coming before judgment in the days of Noah and Lot, when people are living as though life goes on. And he emphasized that just like the story of Noah and Lot, judgment will come the exact same day that the evacuation takes place. There's really not going to be any gap between the rapture and when the tribulation judgments start, although the covenant may be signed a couple days afterwards. But judgment is going to start the very same day that the gathering takes place. And if you haven't yet, definitely download our booklet, Be Ye Ready. It has a number of articles in this which covers the warnings that Christ gave his disciples, including how the tribulation was going to be a snare. It is going to spring quickly and suddenly. The same day that the gathering takes place, the same day that the evacuation takes place, judgment is going to start to fall. So definitely download that and read the different articles. And we talked about how the picture of Leo the lion and Judah and what it represents and the one who sprang forth out of Judah is connected to understanding the Revelation 12 sign, the Redeemer, the man-child who was born of a woman. And we also talk about, and one thing that people have to remember about this whole Revelation 12 sign and this period between now and then, there is a gap. The Bible tells us that after that point, there's going to be 1,260 days left. But it does not tell us how many days are before that. It only tells us that there's going to be time, times, and half a time before that. It refers to time differently before that for a reason, because that time between now and then, Satan is going to be allowed to change time for a season. And he's going to think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. He's going to have a set window that he can play with time, because he does not want to reach the end of the story portrayed in the heavens. He does not want to reach the end of the story. He wants to change the story. But he is going to be allowed to change times and laws, time and laws of even nature too as well. It's going to be a very perplexing time, as Jesus said. So you must keep this in mind. This is going to happen before the Revelation 12 sign happens. There is going to be a distortion of time between now and then. But at the Revelation 12 astronomical celestial marker, that is when the Bible says that he realizes his time is short. Up until that, he's playing with time. He thinks he has created an eternal loop. But at the Revelation 12 sign, his playtime is done, and the Bible specifically says that he has 1,260 days after this, and even says he knows his time is short from that celestial marker point on. So if you haven't seen our video yet, check it out, Time, CERN, and the Bible, where we talk about it, as well as Revelation Spiral Time. And we also start with a good breakdown of the chronology of the book of Revelation too as well. And then we have our poster in our download section as well, which summarizes a lot of this. Understanding this component of time and that Satan is going to be allowed to change times and laws is so important to understanding the book of Revelation. And then also check out our poster, The Two Witnesses Are Not Just Two, which talks about the two witnesses, uses a scientific method process of elimination. Who are they? Who aren't they? So here we are right now. We are still well within the leg area, still between the feet, right at the Achilles heel area too as well, with a good number of days still ahead of us. But keep in mind, we are in prime time right now. The gathering can happen at any time. We do not know the day or hour. We have just been given the time frame. And we find ourselves right in the middle of the time frame. We are here, waiting for him. The lion hath roared. Who will not fear? The Lord God hath spoken. Who can but prophesy? Do you have an ear to hear what the Spirit saith to the churches? If you haven't yet, watch our video, The Letters to the Seven Churches, because he wrote this of things we need to be focusing on before he comes back. He wants us to be ready when he comes back. And we have a summary sheet in our Be Ye Ready guide too as well to remind us that the hypocrites are going to be left behind with the unbelievers. We cover those verses in the guide too as well. And when he says hypocrites, he means hypocrites. And we also have our Purify and Sanctify sheets, which remind us from Scripture, what should we be doing as Christians every single day? How can we be more Christ-like? We definitely need to keep this in mind. We need to be focusing and saying things that are true, things that are honest, things that are just, things that are pure. And we have to be careful, especially now. And we've seen some good demonstrations of this in the comments recently too as well. We are going to be accountable for every single idle word. And it's going to be held up to God's standard. He has told us how we should be talking, how we should be acting, how we should be living, how we should be treating others. When he says hypocrite, he means hypocrite, someone who knows better but acts differently. The Bible tells us be sober, be very focused, be very serious, be vigilant, be very careful, be very attentive to what you say and do right now. Be very careful of how the enemy is going to try to get inroads into your life right now. Because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. Can he devour your testimony just by comments? Yes. Can he devour your testimony by how you talk and treat other people? Yes. Can the devil hold up a transcript of what you said in the past month and prove that you are a hypocrite? That should make us reflect. We need to be sober. We need to be vigilant because Satan wants to make a fool out of us. He wants to devour our testimony. He wants to put out our light. Be vigilant. Ask the Lord for wisdom every time you have to say something. Every time you have to type something. Ask the Lord for wisdom. Ask Him for grace. Ask Him for salt of how you can best say things. Strive to be like Christ. And we are going to need His help and His wisdom, most especially at this time when the devil is throwing his darts all over the place. And he is watching you and stalking you. And he is seeking to devour you. He's looking on how to make hypocrites. And if he can get enough evidence, he will present it in court. He is the accuser of the brethren, remember. So be vigilant. We're going to be vigilant. We must always be on the lookout for what does God say He hates, and we should strive to make sure we are not doing any of that. Because if we are doing something that God says He hates, that makes us a grade A hypocrite. So we must be vigilant. The lion has roared. He has drawn our attention over the past year to where we are right now. We are on the threshold waiting for our bridegroom to come. We know He is drawing nigh. He is near, even at the doors. Now is the time when we must be the most vigilant, because your adversary knows what time it is too. Now is the time where we must be trimming our lamp, examining how are we shining. Are we shining at all? Has the adversary blown our light out? Are we showing darkness rather than light? Are we reflecting Christ in our life, in our actions, what we say, what we do? Are we shining bright for Christ? Can Christ see Himself in us right now? Or does He see the world in us? Now is the time when we must be sober and very serious and examine, make sure we are getting ready and we are shining bright, because this is the only thing that matters right now. We are waiting for our bridegroom. Are we living like it? Are we shining bright for Him? Serve Christ first and highest above all else. Maranatha.